I want to talk about Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Verse 9. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." So peace is a pretty simple concept, right? We all kind of get it and understand what peace is about, right? Peace. We always talk about peace, and peace is a good thing. But peace is a concept that most of the world can't seem to understand or get anymore, can they? If you watch the news, which I don't highly recommend at all, you're going to see a lot of people who are not at peace. A lot of things going on that are not very peaceful. But when you listen to our announcements, what do we announce at the end of all of our announcements? We're thankful for what? We're thankful that our congregation is at peace. Because a lot of people out there who are not. Now, when you think about it, what does it mean to be at peace? When it's people are not at peace with themselves, what does that mean? There's a lot of people that have anger within themselves. They're upset. They're fighting against things. And I can remember as a teenager fighting against your parents. I know people fight against their bosses. I see that every day. There are people that fight against each other. There's husbands and spouses that fight. There's all different types of people that fight. And there are also people that fight against God. God has a certain thing He wants you to do, and you fight against it. So you're not at peace. There's also countries that are at war, and they fight these wars, and who knows what they're fighting about. Some wars are years old, some are decades old, some are centuries old. They fight and they fight and they fight, and they have no peace. And really, we don't know why they're fighting. You can look at cities. In Portland, it's been dozens of days. I haven't even lost track. How many days the people there are not at peace? They're just sitting there writing, and they really don't know why. They might have had a reason to start, but who knows what they're doing now. But worst of all, there are congregations who aren't at peace. They fight against each other. They fight with other congregations. They're just not at peace. But when you read Matthew chapter 5 and verse 9, it says what? "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." So who's a peacemaker? Now, I've read a lot of different commentaries. People have different opinions. Who's a peacemaker and who's not, how you make peace, and who you're making peace with. But I think for overall, if you're going to be at peace, you got to make peace with God. So if you're going to fight against God, you're not going to be a child of God. You got to be one who's finally going to be willing to say, yes, I'm going to follow God. So if you go to John chapter 14 and verse 15, I can say the beginning of this verse and you can say the end. "If you love me," think to yourselves, "keep my commandments." That's a fairly easy thing to say. It's a fairly hard thing to do. If you love me, keep my commandments. It's something you want to do. If you're not going to follow the commandments, what are you going to do? You're going to fight against them. You won't be at peace. But if you follow God's commandments, what are you going to be? You're going to be at peace with God. So, one of the things to think about is if I'm following God's commandments and I'm at peace with God, and you're following God's commandments and you're at peace with God, what does that mean for the two of us? We should both be at peace with each other. And that's kind of what we're trying to talk about when we talk about peace and peace in our congregation. If we're following God, we're going to be at peace with each other, and everything's going to be fine. Now, I know that we say it at every announcement, but it's something that I believe, and I know the other elders also believe, that we're very thankful that everybody's at peace here at 39th Street. Now, the outside world may not be at peace, but we can be at peace. So now, if you turn over to John 16, John 16, verse 33. Last verse in John chapter 16. It says, These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. And in the world you shall have tribulation. But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. So let's think about this real quickly as we wrap up the lesson tonight. So if we're in Him, if we're in Christ, this is Christ talking, not me, this is Christ talking, that if you're in Him, if you're in Christ, you're going to be in peace. There's going to be tribulation out there. We know it. But if we are in Christ, we can have that peaceful life. And we know in the end, Jesus overcomes the earth, overcomes everything. And if He overcomes, we overcome. So if we're in Christ, we can have peace and we can overcome the world. So you have to think about that. If you're not in Christ tonight, you don't have that peace. But you have that opportunity tonight. So if you're here tonight and never put the Lord on in baptism, you have that opportunity. If you're a Christian and have erred in the way, whatever your need may be, now is the time to come forward as we sing the song of encouragement.